The AFC Asian Cup and the Africa Cup of Nations have been absolutely crazy, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about all the craziness that has been happening so far in the knockout stages. In the round of 16, we've already seen some crazy penalty shootouts. We've seen one of the most controversial decisions I've ever seen in an international competition, and we've already seen some of the favorites get knocked out. I'm going to be talking about it all in today's video, so without further ado, let's get right into it. The first game I have to talk about was probably the craziest game in both of these competitions, and it was Iraq against Jordan. Iraq were obviously one of the favorites to win the whole Asian Cup, but in this game they didn't start off good, and Jordan took advantage of this as they did score their first goal at the end of the first half. But in the second half, Iraq looked like the stronger team. They were playing much better football, and they ended up scoring 2 goals in the 68th and in the 76th minute. But the craziness all comes after the second goal, where Ayman Hussein, who was just celebrating his goal, ended up getting a second yellow card and he was sent off. Obviously, I was watching this game, and to me, it just looked like a normal celebration. Now, I've been hearing a lot of rumors online where supposedly he may have mocked another Jordan player's celebration, or maybe the celebration was just simply taking too long. I'm not really sure what the referee was thinking, because to me it just looked like any normal celebration. He didn't take his shirt off, and I don't think he really did anything that was deserving of a second yellow card. Obviously, this changed the course of the whole game, as Iraq were playing for the last 20 minutes with 1 man less. And obviously this did affect them in terms of their substitutions and the way they had to play the game. And for that reason, Jordan ended up scoring 2 late goals in the 95th and in the 97th minute to give them the win. I think this is probably the most controversial decision I've ever seen in an international competition, as Iraq were leading the game, and because of this stupid yellow card, which no one really knows why it was given, Jordan ended up scoring 2 late goals and won the game, and Jordan will be advancing into the quarterfinals. I don't really know what to think of this decision. Personally, I think it was very harsh. I don't think Iraq deserved this yellow card, and I do think they've been hard done by. But let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. Moving into the next game, we head over into the AFCON, where the reigning champions Senegal were beaten by one of the worst performing teams so far, Ivory Coast. Obviously, Ivory Coast are the host nation, but in the group stages, they played very poorly, and they got the worst result so far in this AFCON, where they lost to Equatorial Guinea by 4 goals. After this game, the Ivory Coast manager was sacked, and everything looked like it was falling apart for the host country. But they ended up making a surprise appearance in the knockout stages, as they finished in 3rd place, and luckily they were able to advance. And now they have to face up against Senegal, the reigning champions, the current AFCON winners. And although Senegal were leading in this game, Ivory Coast came back, they scored a late goal, it went down to penalties, and Ivory Coast ended up beating the reigning champions. Now it looks like Ivory Coast have all of a sudden found life in their squad, and they have a good chance to make it to the semifinals and maybe even into the finals. Morocco have also surprisingly been knocked out against South Africa, which is incredibly surprising, because most people had Morocco to win this whole AFCON tournament. And personally, in my predictions, I had the final game being Morocco against Senegal, and both of these teams have now been knocked out, which is absolutely crazy. Moving into the next crazy game, we're staying in Africa, where the best African nation in history, Egypt, who have won the AFCON 7 different times, got knocked out in the round of 16 against DR Congo. Most people predicted that Egypt were going to win this AFCON tournament, and after an early injury to Mohamed Salah, a lot of people still thought they were going to make it pretty far, but no one expected that DR Congo was going to be able to overtake Egypt. This was a very close game. Both teams ended up scoring 1 goal in the first half, and throughout the second half, it was a very close battle, but no one could score, and it ended up going down to penalties. In the penalty shootout, both teams were scoring consistent goals, but then when it came down to the goalkeeper's shot, the Egyptian goalkeeper hit the crossbar and missed the net, while the Congolese goalkeeper ended up scoring the goal, and Congo are now advancing into the quarterfinals, and Egypt are knocked out. Crazy scenes how both teams from last AFCON's final, Egypt and Senegal, have both been knocked out in the round of 16. Heading back into the AFC Asian Cup, South Korea have just beaten Saudi Arabia, which is very shocking. Saudi Arabia are probably one of the top 5 teams in this tournament, and if you look at recent results, a lot of people expected them to win against South Korea, who haven't been performing very well. And Saudi Arabia were in fact winning this game as they scored the first goal in the 46th minute. But in the 99th minute, 9 minutes of extra time, South Korea scored a late header and tied the game 1-1. We were going into extra time. No team could score in extra time, so it ended up going into another penalty shootouts. The penalty shootout started off pretty equal as both teams scored their first 2 goals. But then the South Korean goalkeeper saved Saudi Arabia's penalty. South Korea scored the next penalty, and then the South Korean goalkeeper again saved Saudi Arabia's next penalty. 2 saves in a row for the South Korean goalkeeper Cho, and South Korea ended up winning on penalties to advance into the quarterfinals. Staying in the Asian Cup, we've also seen a surprise win by Tajikistan as they again in penalty shootouts were able to beat United Arab Emirates to advance into the quarterfinals, while favorites Australia destroyed Indonesia, absolutely destroyed Indonesia 4-0, again to advance to the quarterfinals. Moving back into the Africa Cup of Nations, where Mali were facing up against Burkina Faso. I predicted that Burkina Faso were going to advance as they are an incredible team. But in the 3rd minute of this game, Edmond Tapsoba, one of the best defenders in the world, playing for one of the best teams in Europe, Bayer Leverkusen, scored the craziest own goal I've ever seen, where the ball hits off the post and he simply passes it back into his net. It was one of the craziest own goals I've ever seen in my life, and this obviously gave Mali the early lead. It gave them a lot of confidence, and they did go on to win this game and knock out Burkina Faso. Staying in Africa, Cape Verde are making history as we speak, as for their first time in history, they have made it into the quarterfinals as they beat Mauritania 1-0 from a late penalty. In my predictions, I did say that Cape Verde are the dark horses in this tournament, and they are proving a lot of people wrong as they are making it surprisingly far. And that is the end of this video. This may have been a little bit of a shorter video, but I just had to talk about all the craziness that has been going on so far in these knockout stages, where we've seen some of the most controversial decisions, we've seen some crazy penalty shootouts, and already some of the favorites in both of these competitions have already been knocked out. I have no idea who is going to win the AFCON and the Asian Cup, because most of the teams that I predicted to make it far have already been knocked out. So let me know in the comments down below, who do you guys think is going to win both of these competitions? And obviously, if you did enjoy this video, remember to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and stay tuned for more videos.